Hello ladies and gents, and welcome to Kritfayle, where a few of us nerdy folk play and discuss tabletop RPGs. I'm the Penguin, and joined here with me is the Ghost.
Hello.
So we've been playing a lot of D.D.A.L lately, which stands for Dungeons & Dragons Adventurers League, for those not to know. D.D.A.L is an official organized game for 5th Ed Dungeons & Dragons, and D.D.A.L games are designed for conventions and hobby stores where playtime becomes a factor.
And through the course of our gaming, we've had a few observations. I do feel, in a way, that D.D.A.L is the elephant in the room, that its greatest strength is also its greatest weakness. First off, I think that I am going to touch on some of the things that I think are really good about it. And there is some things that are really good about it.
Oh yeah.
The first is obviously the social element. It opens up stores to players who have never maybe experienced gaming before in that way. And also if you move to a new area, you might have lost your group. There's ways that you might not have had lots of friends. D.D.A.L is truly spectacular for bringing gamers together. It needs absolute accolades for that. And I think that's its greatest thing. You meet some amazing people from it, and just the fact that you can go to a store if they've got a game, and you can usually get one. And you'll be put into a group. You know, you don't have to go through all the hassle that you had to in the past of trying to find a group through notice boards and bulletin boards and before the internet and all this, which was a very real issue when I first started playing. And this is just a fantastic way to meet people. So on that, 10 out of 10.
Oh yeah.
It's also balanced, which is one thing I don't like about it, but it's also a strength. This one comes down to perception, because some of the mechanics of the way you can't trade magic items, it has to, the way that that's handled, I don't really want to go into it because it's sort of boring and very mechanical, but you can't just trade with someone else at the table. There's a way that it's all done, and the way that magic items are sort of done and given out in both the adventures and how you trade with players has become just a wee bit complicated. And there's certificates that have to come out and everything. And in the old days, if you got a magical item, you got a magical item. You sorted it out in the party who got it, and that was it. Now it's a more complicated sort of arrangement. And that side of things I don't really like. I also don't like the way they do hit points. You can't roll for it in D.D.A.L. You have to take the other option, which is the split. Now, most of the time that's probably not a bad thing, because the split is half your hit dice plus 1 plus your con bonus. So you should probably get more than what you roll 50% of the time. But it just has taken out that option. I guess that's about balance, because you could have someone that said, oh yeah, I've rolled max hit points.
Hit points, yeah.
Right. I get why it's there, but it just feels a little bit computer gamey in a way. You know what I mean? It's sort of it's an arbitrary thing. I'm not always keen on the arbitrary nature of some of the D.D.A.L elements. From a GM point of view, I love to change stuff. I change stuff all the time. It becomes much harder for the GM to be changing stuff in a D.D.A.L adventure, because the reason that they exist is for standardized play. So the moment you make it non-standard, it basically it's no longer D.D.A.L. And again, that's why it's called standardized. You know what I mean? It's in the title. So that, you know, there's a reason that it's the way it is. But for someone who is just always mucking about with the adventures and stories and stuff, it's very frustrating for me, the way it is structured that way. And it's why I don't think I can ever actually GM straight out D.D.A.L adventure. I don't think I could ever do it. I've always wanted to just keep mucking with it. And I think that's a bit of for someone like me, that's a big problem.
Well, the preferred way you play isn't exactly how they actually set their game up. The way D.D.A.L sets their game up is more of a miniatures-based game, while we enjoy more of the adventure types, more of the role-playing heavy game, which is kind of something that D.D.A.L doesn't really give a lot of opportunity to, because the games are so structured and so point A to point B, you don't have a lot of variation in doing other things or exploring whatever environment you're in. And because the game is so structured, the GM doesn't have a lot of opportunity to kind of give you that leeway. It really hampers any type of performance or any type of role playing that you can get out of your character. And it just kind of comes down to just being a miniatures game, which is fine if that's what you're going into. But if you enjoy that kind of immersion, it's
now, I
kind of a
think
letdown.
that's going to often be the case. Now, I do think it's completely unfair to say it would always be that case, because there is a chance that you have a set group that would always meet and it's only the same GM and the same players. And if that's the case, you might be able to get more out of D.D.A.L. than is the case. But
how many times actually do we actually get a set
never.
group when we play D.D.A.L?
Or at least not so far.
Exactly. And I can see that being a common thing amongst most people that play them at conventions or hobby stores. Like, it even says on the site where they're meant to be played. When you're always playing with random people, it's really hard to get any type of, backstory for one, just like into the game, since it's always a different group of people.
Oh, for sure. The definite problem with conventions, especially over stores, is they're going to be, you might have a 2 to 4 hour time slot for a game. You probably haven't played with the other people around the table. You might not even have met the GM like ever before. This could be the first time you're meeting any of these people. So there's no way there's going to be room for any sort of in-depth role playing. The convention environment just isn't built for it. And even the shops to a degree aren't really built for it. The way you can jump players and,
which I guess if you think about it, it's kind of the point, and that's kind of why the game exists. It's for people that don't have, 4 hours to invest into a adventure. This is a good alternative and a substitute, more of a pickup game, really. And, it allows you to keep track of all your items. So there is a sense of progression, even though every time you play, it could be with a new GM and a new party.
I do think though that there was a comment I saw, and I can't remember the guy's name. I am sorry. If you ever see this, you know who you are. And he said that does D.D.A.L take some of the magic out of role-playing? And he wasn't trolling. It wasn't a trolling comment at all. And I think, yes, I agree. I think it does. I think that the problem, okay, this is where it comes down to. This is where I think my entire issue with D.D.A.L comes from. And that is, there is nothing wrong with D.D.A.L being an introduction to role-playing, to D&D, to any of that stuff. You've moved to a new area. You've not yet got a lot of friends in that area. You are a gamer. You see a store. You go to the store. You get some friends, or at least, you start playing. And after a little while, you get a gaming group that you might not play. You might play at the store still, but you might not play D.D.A.L. That, I think, would be the ideal situation where you move from D.D.A.L to a regular group, even if you're still playing Dungeons & Dragons. Even if it's still 5th ed, game's great. Nothing about the game. But now you've moved where people are doing homebrews, people are playing board adventures, either new or old, whatever, doesn't matter. But now you can sit down with a constant group, and maybe a couple of us, you're going to share GMing, and they'll bounce off, he'll do a game, he'll do a game, he'll do a game, he'll do. But now you can actually create a character with a background and start to actually role play. So that's, I think, ideal. But here's the issue with that. So I've just described to me the perfect introduction, move to your regular group. I think the problem, the crux of this for me, is that for so many players now, they're starting to find that D.D.A.L is what they think Dungeons & Dragons should be. And by default, what role-playing should be. And I do think D.D.A.L does take some of the magic out of Dungeons & Dragons. I think it takes some of the magic out of their own game. Now, for what it's built for, it's perfect. But it's the problem. I think a lot of people are thinking, this is it. This is all there is. This is how you play it. And I think that they're missing the story. They're missing the whole idea of having that GM who will sit at the table and say, give me your backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. With D.D.A.L, you miss out the role-playing out of the role-playing game.
Yeah. I mean, you might get some players who are really good, but they can't really shine. There's a lot of stuff that gets in the way. But they don't even realize, right? That's the thing. If you have never played D&D in any other format, or you've never played any of the Star Wars or Shadowrun or any other game that's out there, you've formulated the idea that this is what role-playing games is. And
a lot of people only think that D&D is the only role-playing game.
That is very true. D.D.A.L, it's great for introducing people, but a lot of them think that this is the only one, and there's so many. But I think that for me, that's where it comes from, is this crux issue that a lot of new players are thinking that D.D.A.L is the only way to play Dungeons and Dragons or a role-playing game. And they're missing out on that deeper...
On the roleplay.
That deeper element that is in Dungeons and Dragons. It's not like, oh no, don't play Dungeons and Dragons, you should play something. No, it's in Dungeons and Dragons. It's just not in D.D.A.L. But if they've never had a game where they can actually have a GM who goes through your background and starts tying stuff from it into the adventures and start making an actual deep story, not just encounters, I think they're really missing out on a big element of what Dungeons and Dragons can offer. And they don't know they're missing it because they've got no experience in anything else. And I think that's the problem. There's no way really that it's described to move from what D.D.A.L. is to like a regular gaming group. Doesn't really seem to be a way to do that jump. A lot of people that do make that jump, they do end up sort of just playing it like D.D.A.L. because that's the only point of reference they have.
Then how would you think you would fix that?
Well, I think that a lot of it has to come from either the stores, but for the stores even, a lot of them are learning too. They're new to this. A lot of the game stores that have come up...
The one we go to, good for sure.
They only started doing this in December, I think, of like last year.
Yeah.
And they've learned amazingly quick. But they've also they've got years of experience in games, but they didn't have years of experience in role-playing games. So they've had to learn with what they get, which is a lot of D.D.A.L. stuff, because they needed it. They're a shop. They needed something that they could start with. Yeah. So they got the same sort of, it's a great injection in the arm kind of thing, but then...
It's kind of a surprise being like, oh, there's...
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing. It's got to come from Wizards for Dungeons and Dragons. It's got to come from Paizo for Pathfinder or whatever. They need to be showing... Some
sort of thing to bridge the gap.
Yeah. Exactly.
I guess you can argue saying that, well, then just make a group, but
the group, if the group doesn't understand that there's more to this than what they've done, that's what I'm saying, right? Like, if they do, they can go, okay, cool, we're not doing D.D.A.L. like weekly, so we're going to do something a bit more in depth. But if they don't know that there's that option, and I think that's part of the problem, right? If I look at Paizo, I see in some ways a massive difference. I see with them, you've got the Pathfinder Society. So you pick up the Pathfinder Societies and they're convention and organised play. Same as D.D.A.L. And you go, okay, cool. But then you go and buy an adventure path and you sit down and from the first page, if you look at any of their adventure paths, this does not feel at all like a Pathfinder Society adventure. It doesn't fit within the Pathfinder Society convention. Exactly. Straight away, you can go, wow, this is deeper. There's a lot of encounters that are social. There's a lot of encounters that are pushing different things. Elements of family issues are in Rise of the Rune Lords that the GM is expected to play out between father and daughter that you'll never see typically in any convention game from anything, because that's not the sort of thing they put in those. And that's not slamming D.D.A.L. This is any convention game from any company. That's not the sort of thing they typically put in there. Straight away, you sort of get this slap to the face. If you'd only done Pathfinder Society and then you look at one of those, it's like, wait, what's going on here? And you might start looking at it and then reading it properly and go, oh, wow, there's a lot more going on here. But the new hardcovers for Dungeons and Dragons is all D.D.A.L. allowed.
Is it? Okay. I was going to ask, like, is D&D and D.D.A.L. kind of like, are they doing the same thing Paizo did with Pathfinder where there's this big difference? No. So there's actually like bleeding in between.
Absolutely. Now, I know some people are going to say, but isn't that a good thing? And again, that's an opinion, right? Mine being opposite, right? So I'm not saying you're wrong. If you feel that that's awesome that you can pick up a hardcover book and integrate it straight into D.D.A.L., I'm not telling you you're wrong at all, because I can see the benefit of that. But for me, the flip side is I feel that they've written those hardcover books more gamey in this. Right. It feels to me that they have connected those books to D.D.A.L. to make it more easily accessible and playable, which is cool for that side of things. But I think the sacrifice there is
you're missing out on so much potential RP stuff.
Right. And that's why I think that there's a problem there with the way that D.D.A.L. is sort of creating these new gamers, whereas I think Paizo has done a really cool job with, here's our convention play, but here's our real story. Our real story is in the Pathfinder adventure path. That's where you will find the crux of what we are. The real meat and gristle of what Pathfinder is in the adventure paths, not the Pathfinder Societies. Now, the Pathfinder Societies can be good fun. We've played the first 4. I think we did those, and they were fine, right? Everyone had a good time.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Right? So they're cool. So's D.D.A.L. But you do hit that point, and I think that's the problem for me, is that but the way they're now integrating everything, it is really, to me, limiting. It's holding the RP back, and I think it's a big
problem.
Yeah, I think they're missing a real opportunity.
It's kind of a big issue, yeah.
Because they could show, like, there was a lot of jokes. And I've been playing since 1983, I think it was. And there was always jokes after a while. When games started to learn from AD&D, which they did. AD&D is the granddaddy. Every role-playing game that exists pretty much has to pay homage to AD&D. Whether it's Star Wars, Star Trek, Babylon 5, Riffs, all of them pay some homage to AD&D. Without AD&D, I don't think they would exist. But they started to learn from AD&D. And when AD&D got more and more rules heavy, like in your review, you saw so much of it was about controlling a keep and stuff and economics and crap.
And exactly. It was bizarre almost seeing that compared to like modern type of RPGs.
Yeah, other games started cutting all that out and went storytelling, right? So they started to, probably in the 90s, there was a lot of jokes about D&D not being a good role-playing game, like being a good game, but not a good...
It was a financial, like, marketer 101 or something like that.
And that was always sad, because there's no reason D&D, especially 5th Ed, there's no reason that D&D cannot be a spectacular role-playing game. There is no reason. There's no deficiency in the rules. There's no problem with the setting. It's awesome. The thing that I think is holding it back is just the way that they've integrated everything to be D.D.A.L. And I think that's the problem. And I think that's what's holding it a lot more in place. There could be so much more to Dungeons and Dragons than what they're doing. There was in the past. So I think it's great they had organized play. It made sense. I think that they all need it. It's a great way to get people into gaming and to, you know, as we've said, meet people. It's fantastic. It's needed. It's needed. It is essential. You know, the amount of new people that have turned up that have never played before, even at Wood for Sheep, that have turned up and I've never played before. I've just heard about it. I want to try. That's what you need. You need to be able to sit them down with something like D.D.A.L. or Pathfinder Society. And just
a quick pickup, easy to learn. Right. You can just get into it and it's fun and exciting.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So,
but the problem is just they're never advancing past that point. And they're missing out on just so much.
Because if I look at a lot of reviews for the adventures, the big ones, the hardcovers, they just don't seem to have the same feel as even the old ones. And
really, because I thought the new ones are actually pretty interesting.
I think there's elements of them that are great, but that's where it feels, right? There's times when people have said stuff and we've been in conversations with people about different things they've been doing, like GMs. And I keep getting the feeling that it's almost like you could do something but can't. It'd be almost like you could make this engine produce 500 horsepower, but the rules won't allow you. It's sort of always holding you back, that rev limiter sort of thing. And it feels like that. It feels like, but we could do this and it would be awesome, but it's got to fit within a D.D.A.L. format. You know what I mean? Like one solid adventure becomes 2 smaller ones to fit within a 4-hour time frame, which means it does not end in the middle of the adventure. It has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end for one sitting. And that doesn't always mean it's going to work out the same as if you created one 8-hour adventure that had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're adding extra points. You're cutting stuff back to fit within. And it sometimes feels when they were talking about different hardcovers that there's adventures within that feels like it should have been bigger, more in depth, grander, more epic, but was sort of cut down. And I keep thinking, because they're compatible with D.D.A.L, is that why? Is it some other reason? But it's hard to, right, because we don't have an insight into it. It's just a guess. But is that what's happening? Is it like they're releasing the source books to fit within D.D.A.L, like the whole format? So therefore, everything that's done for it has to fit within that format. And I don't know. It just feels that that's where the problem is. But that makes it sound like, like the problem with this, it's been a very negative discussion, because I do think there's some serious issues with D.D.A.L. But I really can't emphasize enough how great it is for meeting people. You know, it does exactly
what it's marketed kind of for. It's a fun, quick, in a sense, so quick as adventures go. role-playing game that allows you to be sociable and allows you to create characters and just explore whatever world the DM decides to drop you in.
Right, exactly. And yeah, okay, I'm an experienced game master and I've had lots of years of fun and that, but still, I've got to meet Big Kev and Joel and Matt and Mike and Stanley and Bruce.
All wicked people at Wood for Sheep.
Julian, yeah, exactly. They're all interesting people. And guys like Julian started, it's really funny. I took the Kritfayle to the introduction that they did. They did an introductory night to D&D. And obviously I didn't need it, but I said to my 12-year-old daughter, do you want to go? And Kritfayle said yes, she would like to go and experience this. So we went and Julian was there. He'd never played D&D before and there was 5 of us at that table. I can't remember anyone else there. I don't know if anyone else continued it, but Julian was there. He created the rogue and he played the rogue. It was the rogue that came in the starter box and he called him Isaac. That's where he started and that's where she started with Corey. And now Corey's tier 2. Isaac's tier 2. The miniature he asked me to paint is Isaac. So there was like a symmetry to it. So that wouldn't have happened without D.D.A.L. So I'm not going to say it's horrible in any way like that because it's not, like there's a lot of good friendships and interesting people and it's a great gateway into role playing. But yeah, like you said, there's a lot of people that don't even know there's other role playing games. They think there's only the one and like that happened the other night when we were talking. Yeah. A couple of guys we played with went, there's other role-playing games? And it's like, yeah, dude, there is. So I think that for what you say, I agree. I totally agree. For what it actually is, it's great. That's not the issue. It's where you go from there. And without that bridging stuff, without the... See, in a way, I think they should have just go, screw it, We're not releasing the hardcovers D.D.A.L standard, We're going to do whatever the hell. We're going to write an epic adventure. Hardcover, 150 pages, 200 pages of epicness. And we don't care. It won't fit within D.D.A.L, but we don't care.
We're going to do it anyway.
Right, because that's basically what Paizo does. And I think that their adventures are much grander and more epic. They start small and end in... everything usually ends in tears, but that's beside the point. But, they're great for that. They're just small and get huge and epic. And by the end of it, you feel like, yeah, man, this is great. But real emotional things can happen. People that the characters know can die. Towns that they know can get burned to the ground. There's stuff that's sort of really...
compelling.
Can have impact. It can have emotional impact. And I don't get that from the D.D.A.L stuff. And I think that's their biggest issue. They just don't do the hardcovers to be D.D.A.L standard. Just write epic adventures and people will play D.D.A.L. They'll still go to stores. Those that want to...
separate them.
Right. They'll still go to conventions. They'll still be great. It'll be great for everybody.
It'll be great to have that option there.
But, right from the moment, they should be... You open up those hardcovers and the first line should be, get ready for epic adventure. It should be just, in a world of dragons and dungeons. Just make them go like, holy crap, this is cool. There's more to this.
Yeah.
And I think that's where they're missing. I really do think that's where it's falling. Otherwise, brilliant.
I agree. It was a lot of fun every time I played.
Oh, that's the thing. I mean, I can't complain about
tons of laughs.
Yeah, there's always a lot of laughs. There's only been a couple of games that have been frustrating, but which has been a mixture of bad rolls and people doing some weird stuff. But 90% of the time, it's been a blast. Lots of laughs, a lot of teasing. And that's the thing. It's been a really chill evening. It just hasn't been a really epic character-driven story evening. It's just been, and that's fine too. There's times when if you had a really bad day, just turning up and thumping something and having a laugh is probably what you need.
That is true.
But I do have backgrounds for every one of my stinking characters that I never get to use any of.
Again, that's one of the things with a D.D.A.L. or D.D.A.L.
Hey!
It's just that lack of storytelling, really. The lack of opportunity to storytell and to tell more about your character and everything. It's a shame, really.
Oh yeah, I agree. Absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing. I think that when people start to see that there's a game that will tie characters together and places and people and that you are telling an interactive story.
Yeah. And you become emotionally invested.
Right.
In, like these imaginary characters in this imaginary world all made up in your head. It's really powerful.
Yeah.
And, it's D.D.A.L just doesn't allow you to get to that level.
Yeah.
It always just skims the surface.
Exactly right. But it exists within Dungeons and Dragons, and that's my frustration. It is in the game. It's there. It's sort of not being utilized, but it's there. They just need to write an epic adventure.
How should we end this?
Not like that.
Sounds
That's our standard ending now.
Yeah. That's gonna be it.
Thanks for watching. Just fading up on it.